And in Mandarin?
死亡塔.
Okay, and that's a literal translation meaning Tower
It means the Tower of Death.
Death.
Yeah.
And so just as the credits are running, give us a little bit of the background of the genesis of this film as far as you know it.
Well, as far as I know, the genesis of the film, originally Ng See-yuen had been talking to Golden Harvest, and I guess they wanted to do a second version of the Game of Death. They still had some footage of Bruce Lee that had not been shown to the world from from his original film.
Now, what I heard was that NG, they'd done Game of Death #1, and for people who aren't familiar with the Bruce Lee stories, briefly, Bruce Lee back in 1972 had shot footage towards a film called Game of Death, and then he suspended production to make Enter the Dragon, and unfortunately didn't live to complete Game of Death. And years afterwards, the producers at Golden Harvest edited his footage into a completely different film, and they released that as Bruce Lee's Game of Death. And it was a big hit around the world, and particularly a huge hit in Japan. And so Raymond Chow, who was the head of Golden Harvest, had an approach, I think, from a Japanese distributor to buy the rights to A Game of Death 2. And what NG has told me was that they had told him, you know what, we have stuff that Bruce Lee shot in 72. We have footage from his Game of Death that we didn't use. And he kind of signed on to do the film on the basis that he would be getting a considerable amount of unseen Bruce Lee footage. And in the end, there was none from Game of Death in 1972. And actually, the outtake footage we're seeing right now is from Enter the Dragon, the Warner Brothers film. Were you aware of this situation?
Yeah, I was aware that that there was a limitation on the amount of footage available on Bruce Lee, and I think this was of some concern to NG. But he felt that that he had the capability to take what footage did exist and manage to come up with this film.
Now, originally, this film was actually shot on location in Japan and Korea.
Yeah, it was shot in Tokyo. It was shot on a location in a southern area of Korea, I think northwest of Busan.
Right.
And also it was shot in Golden Harvest Studios in Hong Kong.
And none of it was shot in Taiwan?
As far as I know, nothing was shot in Taiwan.
And here we have the opening sequence. This is in Japan?
Yeah, it was shot in Tokyo.
Right. And who's the challenger, the white kid?
The challenger, actually, he was somebody that they found in Tokyo. I believe, although I'm trying to remember, I think he was British.
Right.
I think he was British. And he was a karate stylist. And that's about all I know about him. He just came in here, did his scene, and that was it.
And we're intercutting here with the scene of Bruce Lee meeting Mr. Braithwaite from Enter the Dragon. So that's actually footage that was used in the actual release print of Enter the Dragon. And there's your master,
Huong Lee. Yeah.
And when you look at the style, it's really interesting because they don't seem to have made any apparent effort to simulate the Bruce Lee style of action. This is very much the stylized Yuen Woo-ping style with all the tricky movements and different, the timing of the fight is different from the kind of timing that you saw in a Bruce Lee film. From your own experience working with Huong Lee, I mean, is he really as fast and powerful as he always seems in these fights?
Actually, in fact, Huong Lee is more powerful and faster than what you see in films. He was able to do a spinning, turning kick in probably somewhere in the area of like a half a second, less than a half a second.
Right.
And I've seen him move very, very, very quickly. And he told me that for most of the filming, he had to slow it down because he said if he moved too fast, he knew very well that it wouldn't pick up on film.
Right. And a lot of people have asked me, now, I know Huong Lee is a taekwondo stylist, but he does a lot of different styles in the films, kung fu styles and different, Chinese arts. Did he ever train officially in any kung fu style?
No, he never trained in any official kung fu styles. He just basically worked on movies with Yuen He-ping and Yuan Kui, other action choreographers, asked him, do this, do that. He would look at the movements, and very, very quickly he'd pick up the movements that were required of him.
So he
said actually he found it a little bit strange doing these crouching type of movements from a crouching stance because that's totally antithetical to Taekwondo.
Yeah.
Taekwondo's movements. But he said, after a period of time he was able to pick it up.
Right. And in some prints of the film, that sequence we just saw has another fight sequence from the Asian print of Game of Death, which is a fight between the fake Bruce Lee and Kasafa. I think that's on the additional scenes. This is one of the brothers of Yuen Woo-ping. This is Yun Sun-yi.
Yep.
Ng See-yuen here doing a form, and this was in Korea?
No, that was also in Tokyo.
In Tokyo, oh.
Yeah.
And this is supposedly the Shaolin Temple, and the abbot at the end there is Roy Chow, and who was a famous actor, died a few years ago, great character actor, and he also played a Buddhist monk in the classic Touch of Zen, directed by King Hu. And he was not a martial arts guy. He trained in some judo, but he was not a martial arts guy as such, but a famous character actor and one of the great actors of Asian cinema. The guy in the blue here is Yuen Biao, who is one of the kung fu classmates of Jackie Chan and Sammo Hung, and one of the Seven Little Fortunes, the Chatsu Fok. And rare to see him using weapons, because Yuen Biao also is known for his kicking and flipping and very tricky movements. I'm not sure who the other gentleman is, obviously another martial arts action stuntman, but we rarely get to see Yuen Biao showing his weapon skills, but of course that's part of the curriculum at the Beijing Opera, the Peking Opera, and so he gets a chance here to show off. This is well before he was like a star. He later became a movie star, kung fu movie star in his own right. And nice, quite a lengthy sequence here, and a chance for Yuen Woo-ping to show off his stuff with the choreography.
And it was cold that day too, very, very cold.
This was shot in the wintertime in
yeah, it was shot in the wintertime. There's not snow on the ground, but it's pretty chilly.
Right.
And so most of the actors were shaken a bit, so they were very, very happy to move.
So what I can see here really is a film that's trying to play to both markets, because this kind of action obviously was the thing that was hot in Asia at the time this film was made, and at the same time you had the Bruce Lee style action, which was still very popular in the West. So there's like a balance between the two. There's Roy Chow coming in. Did you know Roy at all?
I met him, actually. This is the first time that I met him. He's a very, very wonderful person.
Yes.
A very, very good person to work with.
Yeah.
And very intelligent man.
Right. And he had a wonderful speaking voice.
Great. One of the greatest voices around.
And he was, which was kind of odd, because he actually had a part in the international print of the first Game of Death. He plays Bruce Lee's uncle, and he gets this long poetic speech, and they dubbed him. And I was, why? Why would you dub that wonderful voice? There's someone else dubbed him in speaking in English, but he has he passed away a few years ago. He's a very committed Christian. In the latter part of his life, he devoted most of his energy to Christian causes, and he really lived it, as well as talking about it in interviews and stuff. He actually seemed to live the Christian ideal. Here we have the arrival of our Bruce Lee character,
Kim Tai-jung.
Right, and he's supposedly Billy Lo, the character from the first Game of Death, but there's not really any connection between the two films apart from the title and the fact they revolve around a quasi Bruce Lee figure. What was Kim Tai-jung's background?
Actually, Kim Tai-jung's background, I don't know a lot about him or even who introduced him, to Ng See-yuen on this film. And I asked Huang Jingli a number of times about it. He said, just somebody made an introduction. He looked a little bit like Bruce Lee. Right. But in terms of his martial arts background or something, he was. We had very, very little information about him.
Now he's, to explain, in the sequences here, we're actually seeing clips from the front of like the real Bruce Lee, and then back inside it's Kim Tai-jung doubling. Yeah. But this is actually one character, and later Kim Tai-jung plays another character in the film. Now this sequence here was cut from the international release prints of Enter the Dragon, and it's been reintroduced here with extra footage with Roy Chow and Kim Tai-jung. But this is actually a dialogue sequence that appears at the very beginning of Enter the Dragon, and this is the footage from Enter the Dragon. You can see the different color and the robes that Roy Chow is wearing, and of course the dialogue is completely different in the Tower of Death version. In the original Enter the Dragon, he's doing like it's a philosophical exchange, preparing Lee's character to go and take on Mr. Han on this island and to take revenge and all the other issues that are going to motivate his character in the film. And they actually restored this to the special edition of Enter the Dragon, and they put the scene back in. But for some reason, they didn't use the original voice of Bruce Lee. The dubbing of Bruce Lee's voice was done by this Bruce Lee historian, John Little, who's a great guy and a good friend of mine. But I think he's a great writer, but he should not impersonate Bruce Lee for a living. So I should have done it, because let's see what he's. My opponent expands, I contract. When he contracts, I expand. When there's an opportunity, I do not hit. It hits all by itself. You see, and I was ready to come in and dub it. Or, in fact, there is an existing master tape of Bruce talking philosophically. It hits all by itself. There was a tape of Bruce actually doing it, and for whatever reason, Warners were not made aware of this, and so John dubbed the voice. And this actually was the first time the fans had got to see this footage, which had been cut from Enter the Dragon, and it was incorporated into this film with different dialogue and different meaning. It's just another example of how you can keep going back to the well again and again. How much of a Bruce Lee fan were you, Roy?
I remember seeing Bruce Lee for the first time in Canada when I was in Canada, and the first film I saw of his, I was stunned. I was absolutely stunned by his motion. And a matter of fact, that film was the film that got me interested in martial arts in the first place. Yeah.
Which movie was that? Big Boss.
Yeah, Big Boss.
Yeah,
Big Boss.
Yeah. Because I think everybody from our generation is like, if you ask them honestly, what got you into training, it was Bruce Lee. Subsequently, I think people found their own direction and didn't necessarily follow Bruce Lee's art or learn Jeet Kune Do, but their first inspiration was Bruce Lee, or more to be more precise, the Bruce Lee movies. Here's another sequence which was cut from the release print of Enter the Dragon. This takes place just after Bruce Lee's character in Enter the Dragon, also called Lee, has arrived at the island of Mr. Han, and they come up that long walk from the harbour up through the people training and into the main house, and then he comes into his quarters. And there's these insert shots now of these books that the
Chinese
Tower
Kama
of Death
Sutra
gets complicated, right? The Tower of Death. This character comes in and finds his brother is wasting his time on all these hamsapsu, all these kind of pornographic materials, and he writes him a letter, shot from Fist of Fury, and he's writing this letter saying, please don't look at these pictures and train hard like Big Brother does, because it would be tricky actually to have them in the same shot given the technology at that time, because both of them are played really by Kim Tai-jung.
Yeah.
So it would have been quite tricky. I guess it could have been done. So this shot here is like a shot in, what year was this made? It was Tower of Death was
79.
79.
Yeah.
So this is 79 footage incorporated with 19 stuff shot in 1973 for Enter the Dragon, and this footage, in the original version, you see Bruce come into the room and he just picks up a book, and it's actually a book of his own martial arts, of his own teaching. And that book still exists. For those of you who want to know, there's a store in Tsim Sha Tsui called the Bruce Lee store, and they have the book. So if you want to go, Roy, if you ever feel the urge, you want to go and pick up the book, then you can go down there and check it out. But so you were inspired by Bruce Lee. This is it. That is the book, and it's actually a history of the world. And but they put a false cover on there with Bruce Lee's face. It was to in Enter the Dragon. The idea was to show that Mr. Han had researched all of the backgrounds of the different fighters, so he knew Lee had written a book, and he'd put it there.
I see. Yeah.
Here's another sequence trimmed from Enter the Dragon, and this is the sequence when Bruce Lee's manservant comes to talk to him about the death of his sister, and here it's been reinterpreted. It looks a lot like the moustache that was drawn on to Wang Junli in that newspaper photograph.
No, they took a photograph of it.
But it looks like the moustache is drawn on with the black. This guy's name is Lei Hoyan, which is it must be a stage name, because Lei Hoyan is you're a good man.
It means you're a good guy, right?
Well, it's Lee. It's the same Lee as Bruce Lee, so he was like good man Lee. Yeah. He spoke English, and a real old timer, had worked at Shaw Brothers. And a version of this scene is used in Enter the Dragon, but this is a longer version, footage of Bruce Lee and Lee Ho-yan that was not used in the release print of Enter the Dragon, together with these shots where you see the two shot. It's on the right is Kim Tai-jung, and on the left it is Lee Ho-yan, because we're just a few years after 73, so people were still alive, they were still around to come back and shoot stuff. If you tried to do it today, it would be a little bit more difficult. And this set is in Enter the Dragon. It was the rather sumptuous Shaolin Temple apartment of the Lee character, and here I guess it's the apartment of Billy Lowe, played by both Bruce Lee and Kim Tai-jung. It gets so complicated when you start talking about the way they've kind of put all this stuff together. Were you involved at all with the editing process of trying to make it match up?
No, I wasn't involved in the editing process. But I know that that they were having a difficult time. There was a lot of serious considerations in trying to put this thing together.
One of the obvious questions would be when the film buyers around the world bought the rights to the film. I guess it was sold by Golden Harvest.
Right.
Do you happen to know? Did they feel that they were cheated, or do they feel it was a bona fide Bruce Lee movie?
No, they knew it wasn't a bona fide Bruce Lee movie,
right.
But they knew that there were enough Bruce Lee fans out there that would die just to see some extra footage
right.
of Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
And if it was a good martial arts film, good action film on top of it, that they had a market. So,
and they obviously did, because we're here today. This is coming out on Hong Kong Legends. Now we're aware this is which part of it?
This is Japan. You can see the signs. We're in Tokyo.
And this, I guess, is a prototype Steadicam shot. What was actually the camera on? Or was the...
No, that was
the Chris Doyle.
I believe that was a freehand shooting.
This is prototype Wong Kar-wai. This is Chris Doyle's.
Right.
Chris Doyle had been one of the bars beforehand, and this is the kind of shot you get.
Right.
And it's often you look at some of these older films and shots are out of focus, and what people don't realize is that those days there was no monitor, so you didn't really know till you got the rushes back.
Right.
And then sometimes on a tight budget you couldn't go back, and nowadays you can actually go and check, and you get that instantaneous check of the shot. But
incidentally, looking at all these different scenes, we tried to get a hotel in Japan, and our hotel reservations had a little bit of a problem. So we ended up, the cast and crew, living in a love hotel.
Really?
So that added a little bit of extra flavor to the shooting in Tokyo.
Oh, for goodness. Now, this is where? This is a real place in Tokyo?
I'm not sure about this particular location.
I think this is probably an interior. No, maybe it's real. I was looking at the bunny outfits and the girls there. And this girl, one thing I noticed about the movie is that obviously they were not shooting the dialogue in sync sound, but they never used to even sync up the singing. I mean, I've never seen a movie of this era where a girl singing a song looked even remotely like she was singing in the same language.
Right.
As the song.
Sometimes it was a completely different song.
And there's a special kind of extra they get who is like backing band extra. There's a certain kind of revived corpse who gets to look at that guy there. I mean, they're just so like, man, we're getting paid. Let's just stand there and strum.
The guy with the afro in the back,
Who's the girl?
I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know who she is.
She was never seen before or since. And in the movie, she's meant to be the daughter of Wong Jianli. Does he have? He's married with kids, right? Wong Jianli.
Yes.
Yeah. How many kids does he have?
Well, the last time I took note, he had a son. I don't know whether he's had any more.
Does the son do taekwondo?
Yes, he does taekwondo. As a matter of fact, the boy had tremendous talent, even at the age of about 2 years old.
Really?
Less than 2 years old. Somebody was teasing him, and he punched a woman right in the nose.
Wow!
At 2 years old.
Wow!
So,
yeah.
And Huang Jianli wasn't training him. He just did it naturally.
Yeah, from watching his dad train and from
maybe
the
I don't know.
Okay, now here we are, and this is obviously the backlot at Golden Harvest, and quite risque for a kung fu movie of this era, and she's going to be questioned by our man Billy Lowe. And this actually is a nice sequence. The fight sequence that we lead into here is going to be, you're going to see both Kim Tai-jung and also Yun Bu coming in to do doubling for the Bruce Lee character with the flips. There was a quick Enter the Dragon. There's a Fist of Fury shot here of Bruce coming in. And actually, some of the stuff, I can see why. I mean, obviously the fans of Bruce Lee were going, wait a minute, that's a shot from such and such. If you were not a Bruce Lee fan, if you were just a generic fan of kung fu or martial arts pictures, and given the rather limited standard of, general standard filmmaking, a lot of this stuff you go, yeah, fine, works for me.
Maybe even some people, who are not that familiar with Bruce Lee would look at it and say, Kim Tai-jung and Bruce Lee look the same.
Right,
I don't know,
right.
so...
Well, you used Kim Tai-jung years later for No Retreat, No Surrender, right? For the the ghost of Bruce Lee.
Yeah, right.
What had he been doing in between this movie and?
God only knows.
Really? He was in Korea.
Yeah, he was in Korea.
Does he or did he speak English?
Very, very limited. Very, very limited English.
What languages did he speak?
He had a translator.
He speaks English. He speaks Korean, and that's it.
It was Korean, and he picked up a few words in Chinese, but he had a translator.
Because as I remember, in No Retreat, No Surrender, his character is speaking, I think, Mandarin.
Well,
English.
In this film, he's speaking in Korean.
Right. Because at that time, no one was doing sync sound live.
Yeah, so he was speaking in Korean, and they weren't trying to sync it. They were just, the length of a sentence.
Here's another sequence from Enter the Dragon when Betty Chung comes to the character Mei Ling, comes to talk to Lee in his room about what's really going on Han's Island. And that was actually quite a much longer sequence, and they cut it back. I mean, there was these stories about Bruce Lee having a facial twitch of some kind because he was nervous. But I've seen actually quite a bit of outtake footage beyond what's here, and I've seen no evidence of that whatsoever. So it's like all these things about Bruce, and everybody has these stories, you know. It's like everybody used to drive for the craze, you know. Everybody has a Bruce story of, you know, varying degrees of verisimilitude. And now she's coming out with the MacGuffin, which is this tape, which is going to be like driving the plot. Do you know what? I mean, it's a terrible thing to admit, but now I've seen this film and many Hong Kong movies many times, and I have no idea what it's about. You know, what the plot was about. It's a pretty nice little fight sequence shot at Golden Harvest, and it's Kim Tai-jung and it's Yuen Bu, and you can really, when you can see the face more clearly, and it's the more static kicking technique, it's Kim Tai-jung, and that stuff like we're seeing now, the flips and everything, the quite a long continuous sequence of motion, it's actually Yuen Bu. And he had done a bit of doubling work also in the first Game of Death, in the 1978 version of Bruce Lee's Game of Death. Here's Yuen Bu again, jumps up. Nice height on that spinning kick. He's got terrific lightness of movement, Yuen Bu. His problem, I think, as a leading man was he never really looked powerful. And you really had to have him hit somebody 15 times.
Well, he's a little bit shorter stature. Kim Tai-jung is not the... Kim Tai-jung, I would say, is somewhere in the area of about 5'9",
right,
something like that.
Yeah. And the how well did you know Yuen Bu at this time?
Yuen Bu, I of course I've spoken to him a number of times, but we weren't very, very close. We kind of laughed and joked together.
Right.
But one thing about Kim Tai-jung is he was quite a fan of Bruce Lee.
Really?
Because he used to look in the mirror. He used to look in the mirror and do Bruce Lee actions and motions and things like that.
So it was a labor of love for him?
Yeah, it was a labor of love. I think he enjoyed it.
Right.
I think he really enjoyed it.
So just then, before we cut from a brief shot of the real...
Here we are in Golden Harvest Studios.
And there's the gang. Yeah. And there's familiar faces among the henchmen, including there was one of the guys... A lot of the people who you see as henchmen in these movies, of course, later turn up as directors, action directors, or even stars in their own right. And they seem to have like a kind of... They all go to the same henchman hairdresser. Because they've all got, it's like, you know, they got this hairdresser in Chim Sa Choi. We do hench. you get your henchman bangs in there.
Well, that was the style of the time, you know.
And one of the guys here is Joan Kuhn. Remember Joan Kuhn? He was a stuntman and a martial arts actor. He worked on the first Game of Death and is in this one too. And he later became one of the leading lights at Film Workshop as a producer. I saw him not so long ago. And
Zhang Quan.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Zhang Chen would work for seasonal film for quite some time.
Oh, that was his background before that?
Yeah,
I met him when he was at Film Workshop. So he was at seasonal before?
Yeah, he was at seasonal for quite a number of years as a producer. He was one of the producers on this.
So he was a producer and he was doing stunts?
Yeah.
Now that's something you don't see that often in Hollywood. And a great producer there is. We rarely see Joel Silver getting a lamp smashed over his head. At least not on camera. So... Boom, and then we're in the... a
lot of times, producers and that would just come in and help out. We needed something. It's pretty flexible.
All this interior with the car thing, and he's going over the roof. This is a shot that's been... I think it's one of the first times you've seen this particular stunt, but my God, you've seen it. Exit Wounds, they had the similar version with Steven Seagal going over the roof. The difference being that with Seagal and most of the other people, there's a wire. But at this time, they weren't really using wires that often for... jumping up and flying around.
That I don't believe was a wire.
No, that was real. That's what I'm saying.
That was go for it, So
here we are in Japan. Now, I wondered about...
This is an interesting... This is the one with the monks, right?
Right.
Well, there's a little bit of interesting story there. I was there at the filming. We had also quite a number of people that were watching us film. You can see the extras inside.
Yes.
But the monks,
These are real monks, aren't they?
Yeah, they're real monks. We asked them to chant. And then, to go to a next take or the take wasn't quite right, they asked him to stop. The monks didn't want to stop. They want to stop chanting. And we're trying to explain to the filmmaking, we have cuts and we edit things together and you're supposed to stop. And they came back and said, but when we're chanting, this is a holy chant. We have to complete it before we can do it again.
Oh, okay.
Right? So there was a little bit of a tussle back and forth trying to come up with some sort of
if it's not the
negotiated compromise.
But I mean, maybe it was to the good luck of the film, because I mean, it was. I guess it was completed on time and no one got hurt, so maybe you got some good fortune from the charting. But it is difficult. I mean, it's the same when you get people doing martial arts for movies, and you have to make the same explanation. Who is the gentleman in the denim, the jeans jacket coming in, the Japanese? He's kind of given quite a bit of a build-up and a lot of close-ups, and never really does anything in the film.
I didn't spot him.
Okay,
sorry.
we'll go back to him in a moment. Look at all these wonderful characters here. Who were they? They were just. Who's this guy? Which football team did he play for?
I don't know. Just people they found in Tokyo.
Just lost drunken men. Exactly. Who's that guy on the left?
I don't know. He looks pretty lost and
looks
drunken.
Pretty lost. And no longer care where he finds himself each morning. The guy on the right here, you haven't seen his face yet, but I think he's a Japanese connection of Bruce's character. I guess he's a Japanese actor. And here we go from Tokyo, and they're back on, I presume, back on the back lot at Golden Harvest.
Yep.
Coming in here, because the burly guys are all Hong Kongers. I can't believe they paid the airfare necessary to fly them over to Tokyo. And the supposedly late Huong Jianli. And this is one of the big setups without a payoff.
Well, this is a good scene for Huong Jianli, you know.
Yeah.
He didn't have to fight too much.
See, these guys come out, and I'm just waiting for them to throw down with Bruce, and it never happens. Not only does it not happen here, it doesn't happen anywhere in the film.
I don't know. Maybe it's trying to build up suspense.
Yes. This fellow, King Kong, the guy at the front here on the left, that's one of his nicknames is King Kong. He's known by many different names. He's the same guy in Snake in the Eagle's Shadow who beats up... Sorry, in Drunken Master, Gorilla, who beats up Jackie in the tea house. And he's like, I guess there aren't that many big guys in Hong Kong, and there's Bolo, and there's all these fellas. And you see them again and again brought in. Now we're back in Tokyo. And were you working with you hire a local crew over there to shoot, or it was a Hong Kong crew that
No, we had a Hong Kong crew.
Oh, yeah, okay. And is there any problem? I mean, apart from you said the monks wouldn't stop chanting, were they fairly cool about you coming in to shoot a martial arts picture in there?
Yeah, I was quite amazed that they're able to get this temple, because it's one of the main temples in Tokyo.
Yeah.
But
this guy, see this guy coming out here in the denim jacket?
Oh yeah, he is Japanese. Yeah. I can't remember his name.
He looks like he could be an actor, but he's like wandered in from the set of another film, because he never gets to do anything. There's the centre forward there going past. And this is the graveyard, one of several featured in this film. Maybe you should explain the swastika, Roy.
Well, the swastika is a Buddhist symbol. It's not actually Hitler took this symbol from Buddhism, and it has very deep meaning about the unity of life. So
it's actually on there as a Buddhist symbol and with no other meaning. And this is actually the first time we've seen, that's you, in case anybody's not familiar, the first time we've seen your character in the film. Were you, as well as acting in these scenes, you were working on the film in what capacity in Tokyo?
In Tokyo, basically, I was just acting and,
right,
supporting everybody that's there, keeping them going and cheerful and whatnot.
Right.
But no, I wasn't in any production capacity.
Guy on the right there is Cheng, who is one of the producers.
Yep.
What's his Mandarin name again?
Zhang Quan.
Oh, okay. And there's a real monk there getting to do a reaction shot. And where this was all shot in Japan.
Yeah, it was shot in Japan. It was outside of Tokyo. I can't remember the exact location.
I think it's quite a production number to get a helicopter in this day and age.
You notice that they didn't have a very good helicopter mount.
Right.
Because the images are shaking.
Right. And we actually, for kung fu pictures of this period, normally it was just a couple of guys in the new territories banging their arms and legs together and fighting. So there's obviously, this was, I guess, a move on the part of Ng See-yuen, who, of course, is the director of the film. I don't think we mentioned him yet. He's the producer and also is the director of the film. But to make that film have more of an international flavour, you got things like the helicopter. This is still Japan, or was some of this in Hong Kong?
Still Japan. Yeah. Although it's by shooting in
Japan, very evident dummy there hanging off.
It's very good for the Japanese market to have a portion of it shot there. So.
Right, and because the first game would definitely have been a big hit there. I thought I was the biggest dummy in Hong Kong film, but look at what's hanging off the back of that helicopter. In fact, they trimmed some of these shots for the international print, I think because people wouldn't have accepted it.
Yeah.
And there's the death of the Bruce Lee character, Billy Lo, which leads into the introduction of Kim Tai-chung as himself. The first time we see his face like full on, and he's looking at a picture of Bruce. For some reason That's a yellow tracksuit at the top left, but they painted it white for some reason. He's meant to be the brother of Bruce, and now he's inspired to go and take revenge. Had he ever acted before? He was working on this film. Well, he worked in Game of Death. Kim Tae-jung, we don't think he was acting before this.
I don't know. I don't know. He may have had a little bit of acting experience in Korea,
right?
Because right from the beginning, he seemed to have a sense of what it was all about.
Right.
It's not like he was on the set completely lost.
And he was a bona fide Bruce Lee fan.
Yeah, I believe he was a bona fide Bruce Lee fan. I mean,
he was a Bruce Lee nut. Yeah. Like so many of us.
He may have even thought he was Bruce Lee reincarnated. I don't know.
Well, I think there was an attempt in this film to present him in that way, because I think if this film, had he been better received internationally, they would have gone on to make further Tang Long movies. I mean, his stage name, Tang Long, is the actual character name Bruce Lee used in the film Way of the Dragon. And we're arriving now in Tokyo Airport. Did you have permission to shoot here? I probably not, right? I know normally Hong Kong filmmakers would just shoot on the fly. I
think this was what we call toe pie.
And Bruce is actually wearing
stealing shots.
And the character, Kim Tae-jung, is wearing the same outfit that Bruce Lee's character wears in Enter the Dragon when he's first seen coming to Hong Kong at the beginning of the film, the grey suit. So even though this is another character, they're obviously firmly trying to tie him into the Bruce Lee legend. Here's our Japanese strapping fellow, whose name we'll see in the end credits. But I thought he was he looks like he might actually be an actor, To what extent do you have at this stage were they working from a complete script for the film, and how much was being made up as they went along?
Well, I think in order to be able to do this film in the beginning and to match footage, they had to pretty much have at least the scenes blocked out and the major dialogue, matching dialogue. I know for my part that they gave me an idea more or less what to say, but I was writing my own dialogue.
And you were speaking on the set in what language?
No, I was speaking either in English or in Mandarin.
Wow.
Either one or the other.
Yeah.
It just depends.
Yeah.
But, they would give me a general idea of what had to be said, and I would work on it and show them show the Golden Harvest reps the dialogue that I'd written in English, and I was speaking in English or Mandarin or whatever, and later on it was dubbed. So the original dialogue I don't think was actually used.
Now, I'm sure who the heck... This is, of course, Mr. Braithwaite, or our version of Mr. Braithwaite, Owlman. If they ever do like a movie, when they do the movie of the Daredevil comic book, he's got to play the owl, this guy. Any ideas?
Nope.
We started for 10. And there, strapping-looking Roy Horan. Did the monkey behave itself?
Yeah, the monkey was really nice. Actually, the monkey, I had trouble getting it off my shoulder. It would grab onto me like I was his mother.
The monkey was probably easier to work with than some Western martial arts stars, I could mention.
Yeah.
And there's you with your real-life master, Huong Lee. And where is that temple?
That was the temple in Korea. I believe it's northwest of Busan, out in the countryside. I don't remember the name of the temple.
Yeah. And I mean, as soon as you see a guy with a scar on his face and one arm,
you know he's bad.
You're kind of like, there's the bad guy.
Yeah.
He's disfigured and disabled. How could he possibly be good?
And of course, this monkey gives me a lot of sympathy when I die. It's like this poor lonely monkey, being left by itself, no master. Yeah, we should have a little shot of the monkey with like a stick with like a handkerchief at the end of it, walking off, Dick Whittington style. This is all like Yuen Mo Ping's choreography. Right. Yeah.
It's great. I love this stuff. People always ask about your background, and I say, no, you just take one day and just learn these moves.
Oh, it was fun, to have a chance to do some moves with Huong Lee.
Right. Were they shooting? What were they shooting?
But they wanted it very, very stylized. They didn't want it sort of like a sparring type of stuff.
Was it for the film within a film? Were they still shooting on 35 or 16?
Yeah, shooting on 35.
Well, and they just played it back on the projector in the room there. Yeah. I don't know who this fellow was meant to be. Mr. Whiskers there. He looks like he's walked in from the Hong Kong stage version of Cats. And there's the one-armed man. You have to wonder who was filming this. I suppose they got a spy who was sitting there and shooting it. Very fetching white outfits. And here we are, the establishing shot. The actual place.
Yeah, we climbed this mountain. The cameraman. Actually, I was up there and taking that shot.
Yeah.
And
do these guys get a break or something? The fellas
they get a break.
And here he is.
Yeah.
So this is all like none of this is traditional stuff. It's
no. It's just made up. This is what we want you to do, and so forth.
Did they shoot a lot more that wasn't seen, or that's it?
That's pretty much it. It was a pretty short sequence.
Yeah. And there's and now there's the. When you're acting for this, not having had traditional acting experience, how easy or hard did you find it coming in and doing in this film quite lengthy dialogue? You're not really a trained actor as such, or you never were. I don't believe you're trained, right?
I'm not a trained actor, but I did act on stage.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I acted on stage all the time since I was about 6 years old.
And doing what kind of...
Stage plays, things like,
Yeah.
I remember the senior class play. It was the, let me see.
An American play?
Yeah, it was, oh shit, I can't remember the name of it.
Oh, really? Okay. Luckily you were allowed...
No, I played lead parts in.
Luckily, you're allowed to say "oh shit" on a Hong Kong Legends DVD. What was the weather like at this time of year? Was it still winter?
It was cool out.
Yeah,
it was cool out, but it wasn't too bad because it was southern Korea.
Oh, okay. And funky white. You obviously your trademark color is white.
White for the good guys, right?
What did they tell you about the character before you started filming?
No, they just said basically I'm a guy who's very, very wealthy, has some very strange interests, quite violent sort of temper, and
not much acting required.
No, not much acting required. It's
because your temperament now, you're very easygoing, and I know you follow a very spiritual path, and you're a teacher, and you're teaching at university. But how would you describe the real Roy Horan back when this film was made?
Well, you got to remember that I live with the Arctic Indians. It was a pretty tough, pretty violent life.
Right.
And plus studying martial arts and actually having to fight with people and that sort of thing. So I think I had a little bit of anger that I could draw upon.
Because talking about biographical details, I mean, in this film, you obviously engage in a death match. And unlike, I think, almost anybody else who I know who's done a death match film, you actually did agree or sign on to fight in a death match.
Yeah, that's correct.
Which was meant to be at Golden Harvest Studios.
Yeah, it was shot as a documentary in Golden Harvest Studios. It was where basically it was said by Ng See-yuen in the papers that Huang Chun-li could beat anybody within 2 minutes.
Right.
And it took on all challengers, and one guy was willing to challenge, and it came out to be a death match. And in order to get to Huang Chun-li, they had to fight me first.
So what were you prepared in that instance to kill somebody or to be killed?
Well, let's put it this way. I was willing to go into the match. I was willing to fight. I don't think I would have killed somebody, but I think I probably would have done some serious damage.
Okay, so you would have won, in other words, without having to kill the person.
Yeah, of course I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, as a martial artist, you don't have to kill somebody. That's going a little bit. That's going a little bit over the top.
But moving on to safer ground.
Where did these birds come from?
Well, yeah. What's the story with all these?
Well, actually, this is a trick shot because the birds would come down to be fed at a certain time of day. So we made sure that the crew and we were all set up for this, and they were just like clockwork.
Yeah.
And they came down at this time, and we were able to get those shots of the birds flying down.
Now, this whole place is what? It's a wildlife.
Yeah, it's like sort of like a Korean version of a zoological theme park.
Right.
And they have this fenced-off section with you can see the fences in the background with lions.
Right.
And tourists would come in a tourist bus with glass panels, and that's where one of the cameras is located. We had another camera at the back of the Jeep here, but this was. I almost lost it in this particular scene by my own foolishness because after the lions were kind of crawling around in the Jeep, we had meat in the back of the Jeep. That's why they were attracted to us. And you'll see where I'm throwing meat out through the bars. Uh-huh. Well, after a while, I was getting a little bit confident, and I was sticking my arm out to drop the meat. But then I noticed that there was one young lion that I couldn't see up front, and I was just ready to put my hand out the bars, and for some reason I turned around and looked. To my right, to my left, and behind me, crouched next to the Jeep, was this lion waiting for my arm to come out. Oh. And he was waiting to spring on my hand. So
had you not looked seen the animal?
Yeah, I was like 1 second from being dragged out of this Jeep and all of us put into serious danger. So these lions are, they're not messing around.
Had there been any incidents previously with the with the tourists?
No. Tourists don't go in this jeep. This is
just unique experience.
This is where the
guys.
staff go in to feed the lions and to check on them using this this jeep.
That was you could almost feel
he was nervous.
He really was.
He was nervous.
Like,
he was
good
nervous.
reason.
You know, I would joke with him and whatever to keep it light because he was he was really worried about this.
I can't blame him.
And the cameraman in the back sitting in all this meat, you know, he's seeing this pile of meat. You know?
Oh my God! How was the monkey? The monkey was okay with it.
The monkey was okay. The monkey, maybe
I would have kept my arm inside.
Too young to know what was happening.
I would have kept my arm inside and fed him the monkey. You know, I've been out of there.
Feed him a monkey.
No, I know. So this is one of the biggest example of telegraphing in the history of film. It's like, which one of these three is the bad guy? Is it A? The Bruce Lee lookalike.
Well, notice the colors. You have white, you have gray, and you have black.
Yeah.
So who's the guy in the middle here, you know?
You're right. And I think this is leading into the line for which you'll always be famous and, will be engraved on your own tombstone. Take them to the graveyard. Oh, rather, take them to the graveyard. Maybe then they'll change their minds.
You do it better than I could.
The Wu brothers. The Wu brothers have come to challenge you, right?
Yeah.
And you have to wonder what the Wu brothers did, in between challenge matches. What were they look like Siegfried and Roy.
I like the capes, you know.
Those capes and the
haircuts.
Skin. Yeah, those they also have been to Hench Cuts R Us in Chim Sa Choi, where all the henchmen go to get their hair done.
Yeah.
Those are great, the capes. And these are all the graves of. He's been around a while. Those are pretty old gravestones. And
yeah.
Lewis
these guys, I got to admit, they had a bit of a tough time because they had to do simulated martial arts motion, and they weren't really, Chinese stylists by any means. So
who they were? What Korean?
I believe.
Taekwondoists?
I don't even think Taekwondo. I don't know. Maybe Hapkido or something else that they had they had studied, but they had to basically take a direction.
Right,
and come up with these motions.
So they hadn't really done film before, movie.
Oh, they may have done some.
But
may have done something
this
before as stuntmen or something like that.
Right. And now he's striding into battle. And you told me you had the Korean Army watching as well.
Yeah, the Korean Army was watching this. I think 30 to 50 soldiers were watching this, enjoying themselves, taking a bit of a break.
Were you concerned at all about being a white American fighting Koreans on? But I guess it's choreographed.
Well, listen, I'm going to go into a death match. I'm not too worried.
So in the film, where is this meant to be? Where are we? This is meant to be.
We're near this temple.
But in which country?
Actually, we're in Korea.
It's Korea as Korea.
Yeah, it is. It is Korea. Yeah, it's near the Tower of Death.
This is actually one of the best fights Westerners got to do in this era because they always used to use. They occasionally would use Western martial arts guys, but they always looked like a clump of driftwood on the open sea.
These guys actually got a little bit messed up.
Is that what you not? When's the scene where you not?
No, I mean I was even grabbing him around the throat or something like that. I was coming at him pretty fast.
Right.
And of course, I braked it at the last minute, but still, he'd feel something.
Now, you knocked one of these guys out, right?
Yeah, I knocked this guy out.
Right. He's a big fellow as well.
Well, no, he's muscular, but he's not very tall.
Right. So this was he did a pretty good job, actually, for somebody who hadn't done the Chinese style choreography before, because the movements, typical Yuen Wo-ping, are quite complicated. And he's obviously more of a challenge for your character than the other one. The other fellow was.
Yeah, the other one we just had to get him out of the way.
Right. Jump up. So,
obviously, that's not me.
Who was doubling you for that one?
I forget.
Yeah,
who
one of the
was
Yuns?
doing it. Yeah,
one of the
I think it was one of the Yuns. Yeah.
Yeah. Gong.
Whack.
Yeah. And it was the. This was actually was it?
That was the kick.
That was the one that knocked him
out. That knocked him out. Yeah.
Right. And it's him. Was this the last film where you had a major fight in Tower of Death? I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why did you make the move away from... I mean, obviously you were doing other business with Seasonal, and you worked on the instructional tape with Wang Jianli.
Also with Wang Shunliang, who was Bruce Lee's Sixiong.
Right. For the,
as a matter of fact, that's another connection that I had with Bruce Lee other than this film. Wang Shunliang gave me a letter that Bruce Lee had written to him.
Really?
That I have that as a memento.
You still have it?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Maybe we should scan that. We'll put it on one of the other on one of the other discs.
Talking about Wing Chun and what he was doing in the States and things like that.
But this was during the time when you were doing these instructional tapes.
Instructional tapes.
Right.
That was around 1980.
Right.
And about a year later.
I think they were the first ones in the market, commercially available.
I think there were some other martial arts, but not of that caliber.
Right. But going back to my question, why did you move away from doing action in films? Because based on your performance here, obviously you're one of the better people for doing this.
Well, what I found in terms of acting with films in Hong Kong is that there's a lot of downtime.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's all you're doing, there's a lot of downtime.
Yeah, it's true.
And
even on the set.
Even on the set, there's a lot of downtime.
Yeah.
And I was, by that time, in 1979, I had already got involved in distribution and had the opportunity to meet a lot of different people and so forth. So acting was more of something as a hobby.
Right.
It became more of a hobby rather. I didn't look at it as a profession.
Yeah. Are you surprised at all when people, crazy people like myself, come up to you and say, "I remember you from Snake in the Eagle Shadow and Tower of Death"? That the films have survived the way they have? As have you?
Well, I'm still alive. That's true. But I mean, it surprised me a little bit that people. Yeah. People are interested, but I mean, it's looking at something, looking at an event, or looking at a product from a different perspective.
Right. I never forget when I first met you was at the Milan Film Market, and you were there in a suit and tie.
I'll never forget the first time I met you either.
And there's this crazy guy comes running up. You're there doing business and
talking
to
crazy
serious customers. This guy comes running up and, "You're right, Horan. I saw you in Snake in the Shadow. I saw you in Tower of Death."
Not only that, but you repeated all my dialogue
line
for line.
Right in front of
guy?
these buyers. "Take him to the graveyard."
Oh, here we are in a lovely scene. Well,
what
first
is that?
Of all,
that is not. Is that
okay? First of all, I am eating raw lamb's meat.
Okay.
All right.
And we should mention at this point that now you're a totally committed vegetarian.
Yeah, I'm a totally committed vegetarian. But what was even worse is they wanted to make it a little realistic, and they wanted me to drink real chicken's blood.
Ooh.
And I said, "Hey guys, this is hospital.
Right.
This is hospital business. No way."
Yeah.
So anyway, they had to rush out and find some way to make something that looked like blood.
Yeah. So that was
meant to be. But it was kind of
real
irritating to sit and chomp on this stuff.
Take after
raw
take.
Lamb doesn't taste very good.
Yes.
And take after take.
Right. How many years have you been vegetarian for now?
I've been a vegetarian, full vegetarian since 1990.
Right.
Since 1990, so.
Sure. A lot of people ask me this. Do you still train in martial arts as such?
Well, I don't train in martial arts. I practice yoga. But in terms of hand and leg movements, I throw punches and kicks every once in a while just to make sure that I'm still there. Yeah. That I haven't,
before our famous encounter at Milan, a few years earlier, somebody had said to me, "Oh, Roy Horan is still around, but he's living on an island somewhere practicing archery," which, as in most things in this business, is like one part of the truth. Yeah. You were living on an island.
I was practicing archery.
And you were, but the way it was put to me was that you were living there as an estate or something. You were like living as a monk, just doing that every day, and that's all you were doing. And, of course, the reality is you were having a business and an office and living your life, and you were doing archery as a hobby.
Well, actually, the people that are living on the island thought I was a little strange. They called me Robin Hood because I was shooting a very heavy compound bow with about a 125-pound pull that shoots a heavy arrow 150 meters flat, so they thought that was pretty strange.
Were you shooting at them?
No. I was shooting
on the property.
I was shooting at targets.
Don't mess with him. He was in Tower of Death.
I enjoyed, ever since I was a child, I enjoyed archery.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed shooting heavy bows for whatever reason.
Right.
But, I was involved in business. I wasn't living as a monk.
Yeah.
Perhaps in my heart to some degree, but not in reality.
Right. So in these sequences, you're speaking a mixture of English and Mandarin, and Kim Ta-chung is speaking in Korean.
Yeah, it's quite a mix.
How do you work out the timing on that when you're doing dialogue with him?
Well, I just, I would listen to his dialogue, and I would hear a key phrase at the end. I knew was the end of his dialogue, and that's what he had to do, is he had to listen to a key phrase or a key sound, and match.
Yeah. And here's the guy from The Fugitive, the one-armed man. That's the guy Richard Kimball was looking for. Just to mention, just then you kind of set up the major story point for the finale, which is, as everybody remembers from who knows of the original concept Bruce Lee had for Game of Death, he would fight his way up a tower, and on each level of the tower would be different
different challenges. Yeah.
And there's obviously in this movie there's a tower upside down. Now, this sequence, I mean, I would love for you to tell me because we should talk a little bit about Ng See-yuen, because obviously he's found fame as a producer and as the man who's discovered probably more action heroes than anybody else.
Not only that, but directors as well.
Yeah. Directors, actually, you name it. I mean, you've got Jackie Chan, Cynthia Rothrock, Jean-Claude Van Damme.
You've got Tsui Hark.
Right.
Tsui Hark's Debian and
Yuen Woo-ping, of course. Yuen Woo-ping started with him.
Yuen Woo-ping, Yuen Kwai.
So many.
Yeah.
But he was directing at this time. He directed this
Yeah,
feature.
he was directing.
Right. And maybe I have to ask him what this scene is about. I guess this is like the last temptation of Bruce. As you have this
of course,
lady.
Before you go into battle, right?
Wine, women, and song. This, of course, is just somebody from Chungking Mansion. This is shot in, I believe this scene was shot in Golden Harvest Studios. So
right, it was shot in Golden Harvest.
Some tourist girl. Do you happen to know who she was? I
don't know who she was, but she was willing to do the scene, and there are a number of ladies that are kind of in Hong Kong.
Yes.
At
any given time.
At any given time, modeling jobs, working in clubs and things like that. They just tried to find one that looked the part.
Right. And actually, for this time, I mean, this is like nothing by the Western standards, but at that time, to have some girl come and get naked in a kung fu movie, was quite
full view here.
was quite something. It was like not something that you saw in martial arts pictures generally, because Hong Kong films for a long time, the violence was really became increasingly extreme.
Yeah, he looks like he's really enjoying this scene too.
Did they let him stand there when she was in shot, or is it like maybe it's the makeup girl or somebody? Oh, he was there.
Yeah, he's there.
There he
Take
is.
a look.
Wow.
There he is. All right.
So he's like...
Can't believe this.
He looks a little tense. Perhaps the word. Oh, and because the thing is that the gossip press, this is kind of playing to the press, because the press in Hong Kong used to tell stories about Bruce Lee's alleged womanizing. So this is kind of playing to that. Yeah. And then this relates obviously to the philosophical advice he got from his late brother in the film. Boom. Lights out. And this, I guess, is the best they could get to. Originally, you were planning to have a real lion, right?
Yeah, remember I told you before about in Italy looking for lions that could work with martial artists.
And you were actually the guy who got to test that theory.
Yeah, I got to test that theory. It didn't quite pan out. I'm still here, but it gave me an indication that it's a pretty tough thing to do.
But they didn't actually put you in there with a lion, right?
No, they put me with a lion with a small thin chicken wire fence between us, and had the lion attack me.
Just so you could experience.
Just so I could experience what it's like to be attacked by a lion from 30 feet. And believe me, they move fast.
Had the trainer ever been attacked by
the trainer was not only attacked one time, but a lion came behind him and ripped open his chest, exposed his heart, and he managed to survive it.
Wow.
But his name is Guillermo, very, very powerful guy.
Right.
I've seen him pick up a lion, put the lion on his shoulder, and carry it. That's how strong this trainer was.
Not to mention brave.
Yeah.
Now, here we are for your... Talk us through this, the sad demise of Lewis.
The sad demise of Lewis. Well, here I am lying down. This guy had to come in and put a rope around my neck. It took about, I don't know, anywhere from 4 to 6 takes, and every time he did a take, I got a serious rope burn.
Right.
And then when he hung me up there, they found out later on that the wire was faulty, and that I came pretty close to actually getting hung. You can see him pulling back on the rope. Yeah. There's a wire there, but that wire was faulty, and you can see that the rope was pretty tight around my neck.
Ooh.
End of story.
That was
end of.
So it.
Yeah.
Back in the days when they were just using a thinner or different kind of wire to now, it was kind of
the wires. You have to protect them. If somebody steps on them or they're not looked at carefully, they can cause some problems.
Now, these are the same 15 guys almost falling down the stairs every time, aren't they? Right. They just shot them 5 times over to make it look like there was a whole army.
Yeah.
And then we see probably the least flattering shot of you that we
see
in any of your movies.
I don't know.
I mean, you look better there than I look
at least my eyes are pointing in the right direction.
There is that, yeah. So then this obviously is a flashback because it's in sepia tone.
Yeah.
And... But a detective
Who is this guy
going on here.
Here we go.
And
sorting out the problem.
Remembering the upside down tower. But they kind of moved away from it because in the original film it's Bruce fighting level by level by level, and actually when we get into the finale they don't actually do that.
They don't go through the levels,
But it's interesting to me that even though martial arts has such a rich history of philosophy and mythology, that most martial arts pictures really steer away from that. Crouching Tiger, I think one of the reasons it probably worked, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, the reason it worked so well was because it did make an effort to convey some of the philosophical aspects. And you see a kind of a crude effort here to convey some ideas in there. But did you ever feel when you were working in the industry that there was an attempt or any effort on the part of real martial artists to convey some philosophy?
Well, I mean, as I'd mentioned to you before, Snake and the Eagle Shadow, the cat and the snake scene, I had talked to Ng See-yuen about putting that type of scene in there to explain to Western audiences the theoretical foundations for what motions that in the West they would perceive as sort of frivolous, sort of like dancing.
Right.
But I think what's happened is because martial arts is so close to the East, that they accept it. They live it through their books, Qigong and superpowers and strength and all this sort of thing is part of the culture over here. So it's unless you have a lot of exposure to the West, you don't really look at your own culture from somebody else's perspective. But if you're able to look at it from, say, a Western perspective, then you say, oh, well, this film needs this or this film needs that, or we need to explain this a little bit more in detail so that people understand it. Whereas people in the East, they take it for granted.
Right.
A lot of it is taken for granted, unless you come up with a theory that they've never heard of before.
Because you were very much involved with, you speak whereof you know, because, you were very much involved with the marketing of the seasonal films overseas back in the glory days in the 70s when, Kung Fu movies were in there.
I marketed seasonal films from 1978 to 1989.
Wow.
So it's about 11 years.
So you got a good feedback going to the different markets about what the
the buyers
what they wanted to see.
Buyers would say this is what they like, this is what they don't like, and so forth. I mean, the Karate Kid came out, and that spawned off No Retreat, No Surrender. After Yuan had gone to the United States and saw the Karate Kid, he came back to Ng See-yuen and said, hey, we can do a better job than this.
Right. And
that's how No Retreat, No Surrender happened, and we pulled in Jean-Claude Van Damme for the first time.
How did you find how did you find him?
Well, actually, there's a lot of confusion about that. It's not that any one particular individual did some sort of magic number. What happened was I was in Los Angeles. I know we had to cast for this film, No Retreat, No Surrender. So I put an ad in Variety and Hollywood Reporter, and I asked them to send all their resumes and their briefs to a company, I believe it was called Green Tiger Films. A couple of friends of mine in Los Angeles. So when I arrived back in Los Angeles, they sent me all the different material of all these people that wanted to get into the film, and from Huong I learned how to analyze photographs and tell what somebody's ability is just from their photograph, whether they have speed, flexibility, how much power they have, and so forth. And I looked at Van Damme's photographs, and I said to the people there in Los Angeles, when NG comes into town, please make sure that this guy is introduced to NG and Yuan. And that's what they did. And Van Damme came out and tried out for the film, and he was accepted. So it was as simple as that.
What was he like to work with at that time?
I didn't really. I wasn't on the set of No Retreat, No Surrender. I met Van Damme afterwards when we were preparing for No Retreat, No Surrender 2. Yeah. And that's when the first time that I had a chance to meet him and to speak with him and work out with him and things like that.
Sure. How did you find him as a martial artist, given the fact that you train with Wong Jianli, who's like...
Well, I mean, there's no comparison. I mean, Jean-Claude Van Damme has the physique. He's able to do the moves, but he doesn't have the speed or the power of anybody like Huong Jianli.
Right.
But he had the look. He had able to do the moves, and he had the flexibility, which people found quite amazing for somebody of that build. Yeah. So he was a very marketable character, and he had charisma. Yeah. He had charisma on screen. It was quite obvious in No Retreat, No Surrender that he really helped draw in the audience.
Yeah. And I remember being involved with a martial arts magazine at that time, and I don't think we've ever had so much interest in anybody since Bruce Lee, I think, than Van Damme, because he was a Westerner and he was doing these.
Well, No Retreat, No Surrender came out through New World Pictures, and it was picked up, I believe, by Home Box Office. Right. And it didn't do so well in the theaters, but it did really well on Home Box Office. And, and that kind of, even I don't think Cannon was aware.
No.
Cannon was aware of how much the U.S. population had gotten into him by then.
Yeah.
So here we are back to...
We're still in Korea at this time.
Yeah.
And this guy's a familiar face. This stunt guy here, his nickname is Gale, is Curry. And he's another member of you see him in all the Sammo Hung movies.
Yeah.
He's like one of these ubiquitous guys. They never really get much to do in a movie, but they're good. They always play supporting roles, and they're good at doing reaction shots. So he's a prolific stunt guy. And this, I guess, was what was the deal with the door? I guess that's specially constructed for the film. And then we get inside the Temple of Death. The music for the film was done by Frankie Chan Fan Kei, who's local Renaissance man, director, actor, composer.
Oh, Frankie had done a lot of music for a lot of films.
Right.
Yeah.
And some of the music here is okay. There's a whole sequence coming up with the elevator music, which is perhaps not his finest work. This is very much reminiscent of Enter the Dragon's location. And the same kind of outfit on Bruce, or rather the character playing Bruce. Well, I'm calling him Bruce. Kim Tae-jung would be so happy on Bruce, on Kim.
Yeah.
What was his real English name? Did he
didn't have an English name.
Just Kim Tae-jung.
Kim Tae-jung.
And then he became Tang Long.
Yeah.
And so this is it when he presses the down button. And probably I appreciate for the time I guess it showed some of the production budget of
Mission
the film.
Impossible.
Yes. But he takes his time going down, and you got this kind of the elevator music's playing. It should have been Girl from Ipanema or something. As he's slowly making his way down into the bowels of the tower. Hard to imagine this was actually constructed by a monk, and to what purpose? But then, of course, we find out that it's the headquarters of this drug empire run by Wong Jan-lee, who I think has probably played a good guy about 5 times in a career that spans 200 films.
Yeah.
I think he's been a good guy in about 5 movies.
Well, the whole thing is to make a good guy credible, you need a very, very, very good bad guy. If the bad guy isn't highly credible as a martial artist, then the good guy is not going to cut it with the audience.
Yeah.
So,
right.
And the other thing is Huang Jin-lee, had this sort of face that wasn't leading man
lent itself to
romantic
being,
look about him.
Yeah, it's true. And here we are in our James Bond set. This is always like, you remember the Bond movies, they always had the guys in the silver outfits running around. And he's into battle. And you get like a whole generation of the best and the brightest and the best of the Hong Kong stunt guys. This, of course, is on the back lot at Golden Harvest. On the right, there's Ng See-yuen, who we'd seen in the early scenes. And Yun Kuei is actually in here. I'll point him out when he comes into action. The Benny Ko getting a back fist there. And they got these interesting kind of fishhook devices. I guess there's so many sequences where you've seen guys running in with clubs and nunchakus and stuff. They wanted something slightly different. I'm not quite sure. I guess they pull the drug crates with the hooks. They're like dockers, right? Sonny Yuen getting it again. Boom. They just keep bringing in. The stunt guy falls out of a shot, and they run him around the other side.
And believe me, sometimes guys get hurt with shots like that.
Oh, believe me. Sonny Yun Chun-yi again. He's been knocked down about areas. He's been knocked down about 3 times already. I think that was Mars going back there forcing.
The other thing you got to notice about this, and in Hong Kong films, is they slow down the camera speed.
Right.
They slow the camera speed down so that it makes the motion look faster.
Yeah.
So in other words, if they were to slow it down
getting a kick. Sorry, the long hair. That guy, a few moments ago. He was saying they slow down.
If they slow it down to 22 frames per second, play back at 24 frames per second, then the motions look faster.
Right. And I've seen films now where they're really Mickey Mouse speed because they're
like 18 frames per second.
And getting stomped on there is Benny Ko. You may remember him. Fans of the films remember him from Police Story 2. He's the super kicker guy at the end. None of them really get to show anything here apart from how well they can get hit by Kim Tae-jung.
Yeah, that's the cannon fodder before we get to the serious fights.
Now, who's this fella? He's also Korean. You can just tell from the bone structure. And I love this stick-on chest hair he's got there. The macho thing. And I guess he's the enforcer. He's like he's the bolo. He's the odd job of our bad guy. And they're squaring off. Do you happen to know this fella?
No, don't know.
He was a Korean martial artist and bodybuilder. He's got some very good flexibility. For a guy, I mean, he's probably actually on camera. People look huge. I mean, he's probably, if you stood next to him, he's not that big. He's just defined.
Right.
And they were the shooting here. Obviously, this is all at Golden Harvest, and we're doubling back and forth between Kim Tae-jung and Yun Bu, for most of the final fight. And as usual, I guess they were a little bit out of time by the time you got to the finale. Hong Kong movies always seem to be that way when you get to the final fight sequence. So they're like doubling back and forward. I guess Kim Tai-chung would come in and do a couple of shots, and then Yuen Bu. And I don't know if any other doubles were used. I don't think so. I think it was just basically Kim Tai-chung playing back to Fist of Fury when Bob Baker does his thing with the bendy pole, showing off his strength. And I guess the principle that's being expressed here is like, a strong body but a weak mind. Say Ji Fan Dat Tao Lo Gan Dan. How many takes were they doing on these? In these days, most of the
I would
time?
say on the average, if you look at the number of movements involved,
Yeah.
that's 3, 4, 5.
Yeah. But this film...
about 10 movements.
Yeah.
10 movement take, they would probably do it about 7 or 8 takes.
Right.
Sometimes longer if the movement was a little bit more difficult.
Right. I mean, Yuen Woo-ping's very exacting. This is a nice shot here. He comes in with the crate and he jumps up. Boom. Goes through.
Well, the way they do this is they come up with the action, but they're coming up with the action with the camera already in position.
Right.
So they're actually choreographing to the particular camera angle and also the lens that's being used.
Yeah.
To make sure that they get the right type of shots. So it's not like they choreograph a scene first and then decide where they're going to put the camera.
Right. So they're really playing to the camera.
They're playing to camera.
Right.
They have some sort of idea of
Yeah.
what kind of shots they would like.
This is something in an argument, but something I've said many times to American choreographers. I mean, not so much now when the Hong Kong style is obviously is conquering America. But in the old days, the thing is that they used to, exactly what you just said, they used to really just do choreography and then figure out where to put the camera. And this was the difference with Hong Kong filmmakers, is they would figure out where the camera was going to be and then work the action to
well, you see, there's a different philosophy. I believe the philosophy in the United States is primarily content. In other words, when people are fighting, you want to see power. You want to see natural movements. You want to see a sense of realism, and so people can be affected emotionally by a fight. Whereas in the Far East, they go more by form. That the form has to look good because remember they have thousands of years of practicing these different martial arts. They want to show that the form is very, very good. That the person is highly skilled.
Yeah.
Highly skilled in that particular art. So in order to come up with form, you can't have 3 cameras, shooting a particular set of movements and expect all those movements to look good.
Right.
But I think now that Hollywood has picked up that form does have something to say, something to offer. That you can use a combination of form and content and come up with much more powerful fight sequences.
Do you still keep up to date with the Hong Kong action releases and the American action movies now?
Well, of course, I still watch action films and see what people are doing and the type of techniques that they're using.
Did you see Circus Kids?
No, I didn't see that.
Oh, you didn't miss anything.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was watching this film again in preparation for doing the commentary and thinking it kind of was dismissed by the fans of the 70s Kung Fu pictures as being a Bruce Lee imitation film. But actually, if you take out that, really the Bruce Lee elements, a relatively minor element of the film, to me anyway.
Right.
And when you get into, especially what we're leading into now, the big finale, the big action finale, the choreography is really good, and it's to me, some of it's as good as anything that Yuen Woo-ping was doing during this era. And particularly as you have Yuen Bu showing his stuff in some sequences, who became a fan favorite. So it's good it's coming out on DVD so that it can be reevaluated.
But you notice the difference. Even though they're using similar type of movements and so forth, the camera work is different now in the Hollywood films. The type of framing and also the lighting, the cinematography is much more painstakingly done.
Right.
Whereas here, because of the lower budgets, that they had to get a lot of shots done in one particular day, so they didn't necessarily had that much time.
Right. That
much time to work on the cinematography.
Now, this gentleman here is Lei Han San. Mandarin name is Li Hai Sheng. Forgive me for my pronunciation there, but he's the a veteran, one of the great kung fu bad guy actors of all time, and probably best known for playing the main antagonist in The Magnificent Butcher. And he has this incredible final real duel with Sammo Hung. And you can also see him in virtually all of the Golden Harvest and seasonal martial arts pictures, all the martial arts pictures shot through the late 70s and the 80s, he was constantly being brought in. He's a big burly fellow, and
he's talented. He's talented, talented
right.
with his martial arts.
He's still working now. He's like a TV, old kung fu actors never die. They just go to TVB.
Or they go in to teach university like me.
Yeah. And there's Yuen Bu.
Oh, teach kids how to do this. Why not?
Yeah. This is Yuen Bu up against Lei Hon San here for most of this sequence. And then he's back into Kim Tai-jung when he gets up onto the... Oh, that's still Yuen Bu. Yeah, most of this is Yuen Bu. Again, they're running out of time. So I think, they were shooting stuff with Kim Tai-jung fighting with Wong Jianli on one half of the set. And
No.
Oh, really?
No.
It was all one?
Yeah, they were doing it one by one.
Because they were doing shots before where it was basically Kim Tai-jung and then it would double Yuen Bu and then back to Kim Tai-jung. And there was a whole sequences there with just Yuen Bu. But it was really one at a time.
Yeah, so, they were shooting. In other words, if there was some downtime in setting up, then they would switch to some other keep the shots moving. Yeah. But they didn't have like two cameras.
Really?
Cameras.
How many cameras were on this shooting at one time?
It's primarily one camera.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. So, because I always thought the reason that Yuen Bu was in one shot with one guy and the other was because they were shooting two at the same time because of time constraints.
No.
Evidently not. But they. Certainly, Yuen Bu gets a good workout in the finale, and also, I mean, he can do more complicated, flippier, more agile movements than Kim Tai-jung could. Though, of course, he doesn't look as much like Bruce Lee. And it was the choreography of this is Yuen Wo-ping working together with Yuen Kwei or Corey Yuen.
Yeah,
as I recall, or as you were telling me earlier, they were actually collaborating together on the choreography. Some nice sequences, nice use of slow motion, and a good chance to show off the relative skills of Korean Taekwondo and the Peking opera. Because I mean, Yuen Bu is not really. I don't think he necessarily trained in martial arts per se.
Yeah.
Tell me about Wong Jianli. I mean, obviously he has a certain persona on film, and he's famous. He's got superlative martial arts skills. What kind of person was he in this period as a person?
Wong Jianli actually was very, very similar to how he appears on film.
Right.
In terms of his demeanor.
Right.
He liked to joke every once in a while, but he wasn't constantly into humor or something like that. He was a pretty serious guy.
Yeah.
Serious about his career, serious about his martial arts.
Right.
And as I had told you before one time, he was in the Tiger Division of the Korean Army in Vietnam, training people in hand-to-hand combat,
right?
Training the Korean Army, and he'd also had some combat experience, and he was able to utilize his Taekwondo against the Viet Cong,
right?
In certain situations. I could probably go into that, but I don't know whether it's the right thing to do.
If you can, it would be an interesting story to tell.
Well, a couple of stories that he told me. Well, one was actually he ended up killing an American MP.
Right.
And they were in a training session, and the American MP basically came in after they did the Taekwondo training and said, "Oh, this Taekwondo bullshit is useless against somebody that's really good with a knife." And he was threatening the Koreans with a knife. I guess he was a pretty sassy type of guy. And Huang Jianli was training MPs.
Right.
MPs, and he finally, I guess he pissed off Huang Jianli, and Huang Jianli did a front kick to his solar plexus and killed him.
Really?
But he wasn't taken up on charges because the other guy was at fault for trying to stab him with a knife, because the other guy was really going at him. And there was another situation outside in Saigon, in a back alley where Viet Cong came up behind him with a shotgun. And he managed to get out of that and kick the guy in the head and killed him.
Wow. And
also in a couple of other situations. But the Korean Tiger Division, from my understanding, were pretty tough guys, and they had a prime opportunity to check out the impact of their martial arts on those that were captured. So I don't know how much of that, if any, Huang Jianli got involved in, but he was a pretty tough guy, and very, very fast, and he used to be able to get tremendous height with his kicks. But as a person, he was he was a very nice person. He was a good person to work with, And I enjoyed his professionalism.
Right.
The fact that he was very professional about acting, about what was required of him. He never complained.
Right.
On the side, he'd kind of mumble to me about, the timing or the ability of some people. See, what he had difficulty with is he had difficulty finding people that could match him.
Yeah.
If you have a lot of ability, but the other person can't match you, you don't look that good.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's true.
That was one of his major complaints. And as I said before, he had to slow down the motions. Not so much slow them down as he had to extend his legs and his arm movements, because you see his movements are not short movements.
Yeah.
He has like a very long arm movements, particularly extension when you're looking with long shots.
Right.
But he's a good friend of mine. And
what was the single most impressive thing you saw him do physically?
Well, actually, Huang Zhengli was able to do a lot of different types of multiple kicks, very, very high speed, a lot of power, and some of that was never able to get on film. And the reason we couldn't get it on film is he said he couldn't find a stuntman that could handle it, because the kicks happen very, very high speed, and in order for a stuntman to do that, first of all, they can't be afraid. Second of all, they have to be able to react to a really high-speed movement. And I remember I danced with the drunk mantis. There was one section in there where Yuan Heping said to Huang Zhengli, "Well, what esse can you do?" And Huang Zhengli said, "Nothing." And then I went to Huang Zhengli and I said, "Well, actually, you can do this triple sidekick." And he said, "Yeah, I can do a triple sidekick, but they can't handle it."
Right.
And I said, "Well, why don't we show them what you can do?"
Yeah.
Why? He said, "You want to be the stuntman?" I said, "All right, no problem. Let's do it," because I used to working with him.
Yeah.
So he came in and did this triple kick, knocked me back about 20 feet through the air.
Yeah.
But I was ready for it. And then I think it was Yuan Xianyi had to do it. And I told him, I said, "Keep your body relaxed. Keep your body relaxed. Go with it. Don't put any pressure against us, otherwise you'll be in trouble." And he was a little bit afraid, and he hurt himself.
Really?
Yeah, he hurt himself. It took him a while to recuperate, but finally he's a good sport.
Yeah.
He went out there and managed to do it. Managed to do it with Huang Zhengli, and the take came out, and we saw it in a number of films. But Huang Zhengli actually had a number of other pretty spectacular kicks, but they were dangerous.
Right.
They're quite dangerous.
Right.
Particularly ones that involve multiple kicks to the head and the body.
Right.
While you're up in the air.
Ooh. Did he have a lot of students in Korea? Korean students of him?
No, actually, he didn't want to teach.
Right.
He did teach for a little while, but he did before he came to Taiwan.
Right.
He was teaching a number of students. He said he had one that was quite good,
Yeah.
but he wasn't really interested in teaching.
Yeah.
So I found it quite amazing, and I was quite honored by the fact that he was willing to teach me.
And so you were training with him up until what year?
I was training up with him up until, let me see, from 1975 to end of 1979, 1980.
Right.
Yeah.
And he was obviously working back and forward in Hong Kong and Taiwan and Korea doing movies. I mean, the million-dollar question everybody always asks me is whatever happened to Huang Zhengli. Last film that I know of him doing was a movie, I think it was called Street Soldiers. And it was an American-made martial arts picture. One of those taekwondo guys in L.A. who these guys perennially get financing and they make a movie starring themselves and their students. And there was one called Street Soldiers that he was in it's like a supporting role. And then he was never seen. When was the last time you saw him?
Well, I haven't seen him for a number of years. But actually, when you're a bad guy and you're in a lot of films, it kind of reduces your market value.
Yeah.
And so there was a period in his time where he wasn't getting too much work. He was in Korea.
Right.
And then I had an opening and doing independent television programs with people in Taiwan, producers in Taiwan, and convinced them to start Huang Zhengli into the television business.
Right.
So he went and did a number of TV series in Taiwan.
Really? As an actor?
Yeah, as an actor.
Yeah.
As an actor and as a fighter. And after he did that, I think he might have I don't know whether it was before or after he did stuff in the States.
That's a great story talking about that. I love that sequence we just saw then with Yuen Bu, where he does like that. Most of the really impressive stuff here is actually Yuen Bu in the end fight of that sequence. But so you were saying he finished up with the Taiwanese.
Yeah. So
TV.
Anyway, he ended up going to Korea, and he worked, acting in television and then choreographing and so forth, Korean television series. I haven't seen him for quite a number of years.
Right. Well,
I haven't been to Korea in quite some time.
So the old legend about him running a golf tee factory, we don't have any confirmation on that.
No, yeah, actually he was. He
did have a golf tea factory.
No, there was, in the Philippines. There was a friend of his who did this business. Huong was open to other business possibilities.
Yeah.
So a Korean friend of his had mentioned to him that maybe he should invest in this sort of thing, and they were
these
doing it for a while.
golfers coming in.
Whatever happened to it, I don't know.
What's your handicap? I fought Wang Jianli, that's why. And then he of course, we should mention that I'm presuming he never had any classical training in weapons and swords play as such. No. So again, he would basically be just somebody who had a wonderful mirror, and like an enhancing mirror, because, I mean, I guess they're showing the move and he would enhance it when he performed it physically.
Right.
And that's an incredible ability. There's a number of people who were like that in Hong Kong movies. There was an actor... Leung Ga-yan, Liang Chaozhen, who was a kung fu player back in the 70s and the 80s, and he was somebody who never had any real official training, but he could just, mimic a movement. He was the guy from Fort Yun Gap, Fo Yun Jia. They're the guy who starred in that, Legend of a Fighter.
Well, the other thing about Huang Jianli that probably a lot of people don't know, but you can notice this if you look at his films, most martial artists have a tendency to favor one side of the body over the other.
Yes.
The right side over the left side.
Yeah.
But he was equally good, equally powerful on left and right sides.
Right.
With both of his hands and both of his legs.
Wow.
And which is really, really amazing to have equal capability on both sides of the body.
Yeah. Apart from that occasion when you guys both were going to have that challenge match at Golden Harvest, did he ever get challenged per se that you know of?
No, I don't think so.
The reason I ask is even though
respected him.
Yeah, but the reason I ask is even though he obviously had incredible ability in that martial arts world, you always get these people who are out to make a name and have little care for their own well-being, and they end up like this fellow. A little bit of the kung fu comedy there, sneaking its way in, because obviously that was the in thing at the time this movie was made. And then he gets 2 for the price of 1. Boom. And he staggers up and Baigalai into the coffin. And the big finish. Boom. How many times has he died on film? 2. Innumerable.
Innumerable times. There's a habit in Hong Kong when you die in film, you get what's called a hong bao, a red packet.
Lai Si,
Lai Si that,
Did you get one when you died?
Oh, of course. I used to get those because the Chinese believe that it's bad luck.
Yeah.
If you die in a film and you're not given something to alleviate, the potential consequences of such an action.
I should have mentioned it earlier, but I mean, it's de rigueur that everybody from the old Bond movies up until Austin Powers, they always have that glowing map of the world. It's like,
the world is my cookie, man.
The world is not enough. Well, thank you, Roy Horan, for going down memory lane.
Well,
it was a pleasure.
Well, thank you, Bey Logan. I really appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with you and let all the fans know a little bit more about this picture.
We'll take them to the graveyard again another time.
Yeah, all right.